Malaysia agriculture industry export 47.7% with 9.7 billion ringgit. Malaysia has 8 major paddy granary areas that serve as the country's rice bowl and food security. Peninsular Malaysia accounts for 85.5% of Malaysia's total paddy production. Besides that, total rubber area of 1.07 million hectares, out of which 7.21% is owned by plantation companies. Meanwhile, cocoa plantation area are 5,955 hectares with a production of 361 tons, and palm oil production accounted for 26% of wood production and 34% of wood export in 2020. Cause of fundamental risks to the agriculture industry is climate change, which impacting rising temperature. Rising temperature has the potential to disrupt food availability, reduce food sources, and affect food quality. The average temperature in Malaysia has risen by 1.2 degrees Celsius in the last 50 years, and it will continue to climb until 2030. Rise in temperature by 1 to 4 degrees Celsius could decline the 10 to 40% of oil palm head. The second one is natural disaster, which impacting floods. Floods always happen during monsoon seasons, and the most affected areas are Terengganu, Kelantan, Pahang, and Selangor. According to the farmers, yields may fall short of expectation as flooding damages the seedlings. Last but not least, COVID-19, which impacting work prohibitions. MCO and CMCO prevents farmers and workers from harvesting plants during the period, making agriculture production output fall. During the MCO, the selling price of crop-based products was reduced by 30%, fisheries by 30%, livestock by 11%, and processed food by 3%.
The first cause of market risk is exchange rate, which is this happened due to ringgit Malaysia had low volatility in some period followed by a high volatility in other periods. And then, the impact of these causes is real aspect, which is the exchange rate have a significant negative effect on trade, which reduce the volume of agriculture export. As the value of the ringgit changes in relation to other currencies, then the product will become relatively more or less expensive to other countries' consumers. The causes is demand and supply, which is COVID-19 pandemic indirectly led Malaysia to produce less food in 2020 and be less self-sufficient in certain food commodities. And the impact from it, which is restrictions of COVID-19, which is road closure and transportation limitation, have hampered agricultural services and prevented farmers, particularly smallholders, from selling their crops or purchasing input, resulting in lost production and income. The last cause is price volatility on commodity, which is always be volatile and is the nature of agriculture. Since early 2007, global commodity price has soared and have remained high except for a brief and sharp decline in 2009. And then the impact of it, domestic inflation, which is based on recent episode of rising commodity prices in 2008 and 2011. This is the pathway by which global commodity prices are transmitted to domestic inflation in Malaysia.
The first cause for particular risk is the attack of infectious disease. Crop disease is a disorder of plants that result in plants cannot reproduce properly and eventually die slowly, where it's from microorganisms such as fungi, viruses, and bacteria. So the impact from this, crop will die slowly and not produce properly. Plants affected by the disease have changes and disorder in the plant organs, where fungi attack almost part of plants, such as livers or fruits. The process of photosynthesis is difficult due to the fungi that cover the surface of the livers, and color changes can also occur due to lack of sunlight. The second cause is the migrations of the population, where it is the movement of people from one place to another, either inside or outside the country. This is due to social factors that want to improve the lifestyle, social mobility, or modern infrastructure. So the impact from this, crop unable to be cultivated effectively due to lack of manpower, especially the younger generation. Therefore, all the remain is the older generation who are not energetic to manage the agriculture crops. The third reason is the lack of education and training of farmers, where usually farmers do not have a strong and enough knowledge in the agriculture sector and only based on experience, so that they do not prepare themselves to face challenges in this industry. So impact from this, farmer will not be able to face challenges in terms of productivity, logistics, mental and physical in the agriculture sector. This makes it very difficult for farmer to make decisions related to the problem faced without knowledge.
One of the financial risks they might be faced in the risk of high transaction costs. This transaction cost is the plantation sector might include the transaction of the raw materials. The effect is rural area might be facing problem if the farmer wanted to sell their crops to the urban areas. The farmer face a high liability risk due to the high price of assets or machines that are being used in the productions. The effect is difficult to repay loans and pay operational expenditure. In terms of liability, ZAMRI Plantation berhad after of RM7.5 billion at the end of June 2021. Farmers in Malaysia also might face high loan interest rate. As example, agro interest rate for loan is high as it aims toward the plantation sector developers. The effects toward this cost is manipulation of the company. Therefore, farmers sometimes do avoid issuing a loan when they wanted to start a farm or involve in agriculture business.
presenting about the operational risk. So the first cause in operational risk is basically the shortage of labor, and this shortage of labor had caused a high amount of unharvested crops in plantation sector in Malaysia. The second cause is supply chain, which had impacted on low production growth in plantation sector in Malaysia, especially on rubbers and also palm oil. The last cause in operational risk is new technologies, and these new technologies had impacted on lack of adjustment towards the new technologies among the workers and also employers in the plantation sector.
First, other business trend is increase in agriculture competition in plantation agriculture business can be happen easily when the demand from the product from the sector increase from customer. For example, Evasive Rubber Berhad and Cotton Rubber Industry Berhad compete each other to produce and export their glove and technical rubber. The causes by this effect can influence to spur the invention of new or better product that will influence into precision agriculture and robotic system. Furthermore, other causes are changes in customer preference also can affect the agriculture business sector as customer might switch to other more attractive product in market. It will affect on lag in demanding against agriculture product. For example, possibly in the future, people in Malaysia will switch rice to Korean food such as kimchi that will influence the demand for crops declines. Next cause is changes in government. This is because this quality and quantity of economic input of the agriculture system are easily determined by the governments. Government policy will impact in failure to influence agriculture yield through subsidy.
All the impacts of fundamental risks on agriculture industry, which are rising temperature, floods and work prohibition due to COVID-19, are already in their likelihood or may occur at least once every year. All of them carry each effects on the country or the operators itself. The number of heat waves that occur each year is predicted to rise dramatically. 7 areas in Peninsular Malaysia experienced a yellow level heat wave in March 2021. A 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperature could result in 30% decrease in oil palm yield. Major floods usually occur during monsoon season, which is October to March every year. A chili grower had his entire farm in Selangor completely destroyed by floods that reached 3.4 meter high, resulting in loss around 100,000 ringgit. Agriculture and Food Industry Ministry has allocated 100 million to help agro-food entrepreneurs affected by recent floods. And lastly, although COVID-19 has only occurred once in human history, it is considered as a pandemic. Since 2020, the government has implemented MCO for 2 times. Several problems arose because of the MCO, including scarcity in fertilizer, pesticides, seeds and other equipment.
Evaluation of potential risk on market risk, the first one is real export, which is likely because in 2020 Malaysia export had reached 26.8 billion, where palm oil is the dominant export and the leading market. And then the previous year the Malaysian ringgit has experienced depreciation against the US dollar in 2015, where at one point it was trading at RM3 ringgit 80 cent per USD. And then the second one, restriction of COVID-19, which is rarely has led to high demand for fresh food items at local market and supermarkets. And the MCO created a panic demand from consumers to stock up their supply for future consumption. And then the last one is domestic inflation, which is moderately because the direct effect occur when changes in global commodity prices are immediately transferred to changes the pricing of final goods and services purchased by consumers.
Next, for impact in particular risk, the first is likely. This is because each plant has its own disease that are considered common. To be clear, where the infectious disease that attack rice farming is known as bacterial panicle blight, this is caused by the bacterium Bulgaria gluma, which will cause the rice to be empty. The second impact has a moderate likelihood. This is because not all agricultural crop fail to be managed well with the help of various technology nowadays despite the lack of manpower. However, there are still a large part that are difficult to manage crop due to the aging and the lack of energy of farmers, which solely meet their daily activities. The third impact also has a moderate likelihood. This is because farmers are less aware of the needs for technology to develop the agriculture sector in the future. This is driven by highly skilled manpower by pursuing education and training, especially in developing a managed agriculture system. Preparation in producing skilled manpower to face all the challenges in the agriculture system in industry.
I continue with the evolution of financial risks. The first one in rural areas need to self-sustain, which is moderately likelihood. This happened because of government subsidies not be able to reach the rural areas. And the second one is difficulty to repay loan, which is moderately too due to high level of debt and they burden from all agricultural activities. And the third one is manipulation of big companies moderately, which is this happened because the higher interest of loan had making the farmers remain poor in the country.
Next, for evaluation of potential risks for operational risks, we evaluate three types of impacts, which are unharvested crops, low production growth, and also lack of adjustment to new technologies. These three impacts happen rather moderately in the plantation sector in Malaysia. As for unharvested crops, we had losses around 11.83 billion of revenue losses, which accumulated around 22% of revenue losses every year. And we also, this also happened because of labor shortage, as we can see that the ratio for acreage per worker is 10.9 hectare for per one worker. And for low production goods, we can see that Malaysia is producing much lesser natural rubbers each years compared to the earlier 2010s. And then we can see also Malaysia mostly relies on import rice, as Malaysia only produces 1/4 of rice of all local consumption of rice in Malaysia. Other than that, for the lack adjustment in new technologies, we can see that workers not actually very skilled in using new machines. So it will be employers hustle to actually teach their workers on how to use it and the safety of using those machines.
First is for the invention of new or better product can be said it moderate happen on effect in business risks. Business needs to keep an eye on the activity of its competitor from time to time. To maintain and improve competitiveness, this industry should take several action, including the development of lending technologies. Next, lacking in demanding against agriculture product can be said it moderate happen in agriculture industry. Lack of demanding related with the changing in consumer trend also happen when consumer rate the bundle of good according to the level of utility. Moreover, failure to influence agriculture yields through subsidy actually rate it related with government policy that should be followed by all the agriculture farmers. This regulation and policy bring large loss for the industry when becoming unfavorable for farmers. Government rules are unavoidable and need to be followed at any conditions.
All the impacts of fundamental risks might be occur rarely or at least once a year. However, each of them carries different severity to the industry. The first one is rising temperature, which gives major impact to the industry. Agricultural plants and output are extremely subject to climate changes, such as rising temperatures. Malaysia has had to maintain protection in its rice sector in order to secure the country's food security. According to the DSSAT, increases in temperature diminish the rice yield by 12% and 31.3%. The second one is floods, which give severe impact to the industry. Recently, more than 200,000 ringgit worth of paddy crops across 34 hectares of farmland in 2021 were destroyed in Yan Kedah. Mada said most of the damaged crops were in the later phases of farming, and only 20 days till harvest. Compensation application was done under Disaster Relief Fund to 20 farmers that were harmed. Lastly, work prohibition, which gives severe impact to the industry too. Fall in rice production will diminish farmers' gross revenue and the country's rice self-sufficiency level. Mardi's survey showed that the pandemic COVID-19 affected 91.1% of agriculture enterprises. Mafi reported agriculture GDP declined by roughly 7% during the pandemic.
The identification of market risk, the first one, real export, which is likely and moderate, because export in Malaysia increased a lot in November 2021 and record a new record in December 2021, beating market consensus of a 24.6% rise. The second one is restriction COVID-19, which is rarely and severe because due to prolonged lockdown and restricted movement, moving agricultural produce from one part to another part was a challenge, and disruption also underlined the necessity of robust, secure crop and fresh produce storage facility for the long run. And the last one, for domestic inflation, which is moderately and minor, which is effect on retail price were raised by some average, and then there also an upward adjustment to tariff, and the price of chicken also increased sharply and contribute about 5.2% to headline inflation in 2011.
The first I put as likely measure. This is because each type of agriculture crop has their own disease. Every crop has a different infectious rate, but basically disease infection is a fairly common thing in this sector. There are two factors that cause disease, namely biotech factor due to microorganism and high abiotic factors caused by the weather and temperature. Second, I put as moderately moderate. This is because the rural area now lack of the younger generation who are stable and energy to manage and carry out agricultural activities. No workforce is very worrying when the elderly is no longer able to manage their agriculture land. The third is I put as moderately moderate as well. This is because farmers do not have enough knowledge and strong enough to deal with all and every problem that will be faced. Physical and mental preparation is very important. In addition, sanity and wisdom in decision making when faced with the problem and challenges is very much in need of knowledge. The first I put as moderate minor. This is because budget decreased slightly over the year with the changes of price for some raw materials. The budget might not be able to sustain the plantation. Those farmers who join FELDA or IZZATI program to get money from the government to sustain their plantation activities. Second, I put as moderately minor. This is because farmers are also having difficulty to repay loans because of the high level of liability that farmers usually must endure. The worrying of the debt that SAMRI Plantation Berhad has is not something that's still new among the companies in the plantation sector. The third I put as moderately minor as well. This is because SAMRI Plantation Berhad and FGV Corporation Berhad hoard almost all the agriculture activities where still hardly depend or rely on villagers who owns a rubber farm. They refuse to not having a rely independently on loan and join any programs under government bosses such as IZZATI and FELDA.
So for identification of impact for operational risk, we have firstly unharvested crops, which happen rather moderately and also have moderate impact in plantation sector in Malaysia. So we had discussed earlier in labour shortage how this impact actually caused by labour shortage. As example, SAMRI Plantation Berhad and also FGB Corporation Berhad mostly rely on foreign workers. And one of the way to solve this problem is to hire local young workers instead. Next, for the low production growth, also happen rather moderately and have moderate severity in the plantation sector. As we had discussed earlier, how natural rubber production in Malaysia had decreased over a year. However, in 2021, the production rate had decreased rather worryingly, where they decreased around 4.8%, which resulted to much lower production of natural rubber into 2021 compared to 2020. Lastly, for the operational risk, we have lack of adjustment to the new technologies, which happen rather moderately in the plantation sector. However, this impact have a very major severity because there's already several cases of deaths of workers relating to the wrong use of machineries and also vehicles in the plantation sector. If I wanted to highlight on the palm oil plantation sector especially, so most of these workers more likely to suffer from big pains if they are not yet dead. That's all.
Spur the invention of new or better product always happen in agriculture industry in Malaysia. This spur the invention of new product give a moderate impact and it always happen every year, but the impact is not worse compared to fundamental risks. Moreover, lacking in demanding against agriculture product also having a moderately frequency to happen in agriculture industry. So lack in demanding towards agriculture actually giving a moderate impact towards agriculture industry because of not all the consumer age will change their preference in the short times. In addition, failure to influence agriculture yields, short government subsidy are actually rare frequency to happen in agriculture industry because government will change the policy if the policy will give a higher benefit to all the people in country. Raise agriculture productivity with wider benefit that actually bring a moderate impact to agriculture business.
The first one is TAKAFUL My SME. It is a comprehensive and adaptable plan that can be adjusted to business-specific requirements. It includes all risks, money, personal accidents, and many more. Not only suitable for COVID-19, natural disaster also is suitable because it can be expanded to additional hazards such as flood. However, it should just include the package depends on the type of business if they want to expand coverage without additional fee. The second one is TAKAFUL My Fire. The basic cover consists of property loss or damage caused by fire, lightning, or explosion that is not part of guesswork. It has no additional cost to the business, and they may extend to cover lost rent and perils such as floods. However, it should cover the loss of other properties too, if the damage caused by fire such as farms, crop fields, estates, and plantations.
The TAKAFUL product for market risk, the first one is Zurich SME TAKAFUL because Zurich can help protecting business so the owner only focus for growing the business. And then it can protect the farmers or owner of business face a huge loss in their business, especially due to pandemic and other accident. And it can select the offer with comprehensive coverage or empower to decide the coverage of business or large SME business. And the improvement, I think it should just include all in one package, depends on type of business if they want to expand the coverage. The second one is credit takaful by Exim Bank, which is it provides protection against the risk of non-payment by buyers because of commercial risk. And it almost facility for Malaysian exporter to secure a payment for their export and imports from the buyers or from Exim Bank by way of takaful claims. And it also can help exporter to seek a new market and expand their business. The improvement, it should cover damage of product during import and export.
Firstly, intellectual takaful. Intellectual takaful is for educating to ensure their future to get a better and more secure education. Every young individual should prepare with all things and various aspects, especially education, knowledge and training. The objective of this intellectual takaful is to help set aside a small amount each month. Improvement, takaful needs to improve and provide further expand their target user by providing takaful education to adult age 40 and above. Next, asset and liability protection. A takaful that provide and serve to protect asset and liability from something undesirable. Asset and liability protection will help manage a wide range of type and degrees of risk across on unlimited numbers of industry sector. Improvement needs to further improve this takaful by focusing more and more detail on the type of risk that will be covered by ATHIRAH.
Next, for the selection of takaful product for the financial risk, we decided to choose public liability takaful, which is a product that intended to shield business owners from any legal duty to pay compensation of for any unintentional harm or damages. So basically, it protects the insured if the purchases is being sued for claims that are covered by the insurance policy. So for this product, we also have some improvement suggestion for this product, which we suggest for this product to also cover any loss that are related to the debt they are being taken for buying machineries or land or even long-term assets. Next, for the selection of takaful product for operational risk, we had selected 4 types of takaful products, which the first two is foreign workers takaful guarantee and also workmen's compensation. So for foreign workers takaful guarantee, it is intended to cover the cost of repatriation for workers who are obliged by the authorities to return to their home country. Our suggestion for improvement for this product is that for the company that offered this product to also cover the payment for visa renewal or also passport renewal, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, where these workers actually didn't have any access to renew their visa and also renew their passport. And also for workmen's compensation, it can cover injuries that happen during their workplace and also during their work hours. Other than that, it also covered any disease that happen during their employment. So our suggestion for improvement is that for this product to only cover work-related disease that require a long-term treatment, such as any disorder regarding their back pain, and not really cover any disease that happen in a short span of time, such as a fever or sinuses. The next takaful product selected for operational risk is electrical equipment and also machinery breakdown. So basically, for electric equipment, it provides full coverage for electrical and computer-related equipment, and it covers 3 sections, which are material damage, external data, and also increased cost of working. Our suggestion for improvement is that this product should also cover any losses when the damage are found during the regular inspection. Next, for machinery breakdowns, it covers abrupt anticipated damage to machineries while it is at operation, as it is also prone to any malfunction and damage. Our suggestion for improvement of this product is that this product should also cover any expenses of throwing the broken machines.
Based on all analysis on business risks to agriculture industry, all the causes and impact are affected to business problem. Agriculture business can enroll on engineering takaful for safeguard farmers. Agriculture business equipment and machinery. The main advantage whether there is the erection of installation of machinery of equipment, there is a risk of loss or damage. Through this takaful product, it can help the agriculture business and farmers to protect their business when they're having a lack of demand towards their agriculture product. Another takaful product that agriculture business or farmer can enroll is SME business takaful, which is business segment. The advantage to this takaful product is it will give the agriculture business benefit such as customer solution that offer 3 types of plan for farmers to choose from the world best suit agriculture business segment and guaranteed acceptance that very suitable towards agriculture business.
Based on the research, all risks are different in terms of definition, causes, impacts, likelihood, and severity. The selection of takaful products to each risk is also different because each takaful chosen are based on the risk itself. Takaful products provide and assist businesses in a variety of ways that benefit them in terms of protections. We hope that Malaysia's agriculture industries can shine and grow bigger in the future despite facing all these risks and impacts with the protection of takaful products in order to strengthen the country's economy and increase Malaysia's GDP.